So we got a great question in the Living Voices community the other day, and I wanted to make a video to respond to it. It came from one of my young clients who's interested in music theatre. She wants to work on her belting, and I had mentioned that it might be a good idea to do a good warm-up before belting, but she is experiencing a lot of resistance to doing warm-ups. Now, I don't know about you, but I can really relate to this and have experienced this at various points in my life. Resistance to warm-ups, resistance to exercises, resistance to practice at all. So let's talk specifically about warm-ups. In this video, I want to cover, do we even need warm-ups? What are we actually doing when we warm up? What could happen if you don't warm up? What counts as a warm-up? And how to reduce or remove those barriers to warming up and make it more enjoyable. Before I answer this question with my own perspective, I went to a really amazing group that I'm a member of, which contains singing teachers and vocal coaches from all over the world and some of what I would consider to be some of the best folks in the world in this area, with various kinds of really cool specializations. There was even some debate in this group around whether warm-ups are even necessary, but it did often come down to how we are defining warm-ups. Something to keep in mind with any singing or vocal advice that you get from anyone ever is that everybody's different. Every body is different, every voice is different, and different people have different needs. If you find that you can sing and you can just launch into belting and it's totally fine without a warm-up, maybe you don't need a warm-up or much of a warm-up, or maybe talking is enough of a warm-up for you. Personally, I find that after I've done a good warm-up, my singing is a lot better. It feels a lot easier, and I have heard that from a lot of people that I work with as well. There are many elements that might contribute to how much warm-up you need. These things would include your general health, how much sleep you've had, things like postnasal drip, acid reflux, any other kind of inflammation-causing issues. So remember, your mileage may vary, including what kind of warm-up you may need for the kind of vocal task that you're about to ask your voice to do. So why would we warm up? What are we doing when we warm up? And what could happen if we don't warm up? A while back, I was experiencing a bout of vocal fatigue after jumping into an unexpected session teaching belting without having warmed up my voice very much first. I went to see my vocal physiotherapist at Performance Medicine in Melbourne, and she explained it to me this way. When we suddenly go into belting or any other vocal quality which is intense, or where the mechanisms are used or positioned in a very different way to how they are when we are speaking or relaxed, if we do this without properly warming up, our muscles are suddenly yanking into that position. So for example, with belting, often the larynx needs to go quite high in order to make that sound. When we do this without properly warming up, the muscles may not let go or release properly after this sudden intense action. Therefore, they might get a bit stuck, or you might be left with residual tension, discomfort, or dysfunction, which can then impact your vocal ability, control, or ease and comfort with singing or speaking. I will also mention here that cooling down after these intense vocal qualities is a really good idea as well, but I'm not talking about that in this video. Warming up helps us to prepare our muscles and mechanisms for the task we're about to ask them to do. So if you're doing something like belting, for example, on top of your regular warm-up to activate your voice generally, you may then want to do some exercises and sounds which ease you into a higher larynx and tongue position, singing higher notes, using twang if that's desired, gradually adding the pieces of the recipe together to end up in the belt sound. When we warm up our body for physical activity or our voice for singing, we are activating our mind, our body, our muscles, and other parts of the vocal mechanisms. We're getting it all ready to do the thing we're about to ask it to do. On a physical level, we're activating the muscles and mechanisms and generating blood flow to them. We are stretching the muscles and other tissues, encouraging them to allow themselves to lengthen after a period of inactivity or possibly less athletic activity when they may be shortened. Starting to use the muscles and mechanisms in the kinds of ways you're planning to use them during your workout, sport, singing, building up the same kind of movements from smaller or lower intensity and gradually increasing the intensity or size of the movement. You're also just checking in with your body generally, noticing how you are today, and warming up your mind for the mental aspect of the activity, bringing your awareness to your body, your voice, your sound, getting into the zone of attention needed. So, what counts as a warm-up? What do you think of when you think of warming up your voice? Is it doing 10 minutes of scales? Because that's not something I would necessarily recommend as a warm-up. Let's think about how can we make the warm-ups more easy, enjoyable, and accessible. A warm-up doesn't have to be exercises. Remember, the goal with warming up is to start gentle and gradually increase intensity. If you jump in the deep end by singing big arpeggios at full volume, you're not warming up, you're breaking into a sprint or doing long jump straight away. So it's possible to do an exercise and have it not be warming up at all. But you can also use things that are not exercises to warm up, such as humming along to a song that you really enjoy that's a little bit easier, starting with easier excerpts of songs and gradually increasing the intensity. And how long does your warm-up have to be? If you imagine that you have to do 30 minutes of exercises before you even start singing a song, that's probably never going to happen. If you take a moment to check in with your own body, mind, and voice, you'll get a sense of what you need on this particular day. A simple siren exercise can be a good way to just check in on your voice and go, what am I feeling and where? So distinguish between warm-up exercises, technical exercises, musical exercises, and songs. But there can be crossover and things can have multiple uses. The 3 main warm-up exercises that I love to do all are technical exercises as well that can help us to train certain types of vocal settings. Personally, the exercises that I like are usually weird noises, not so much things like scales. But perhaps you'd like to make it more musical rather than weird noises. So again, use easy songs or excerpts to warm up for harder songs. Speaking of making weird noises, is it that you feel uncomfortable about being heard by other people? If so, could you communicate with them, let them know during this time, I'm going to be making some weird noises. Blame it on your singing teacher, blame it on your vocal coach, go, I know this sounds bad, it's supposed to sound bad. Or offer them some earplugs perhaps. Is it the time that you spend and getting bored and distracted while doing warm-ups? Remember that you can multitask. I usually do my warm-ups every day in the shower and while I'm making breakfast, and then when I get to my office a little bit again before my first client arrives. Sure, multitasking means you may not observe as many small details about your sound and sensations, and it is a good idea, especially when getting started, to be present and focused to make these observations. But if it's a choice between multitasking them or not doing them at all, then just multitask. So, finally, to wrap this up, here are some questions you could ask yourself to help you get over the hump in doing warm-ups. What is it specifically that is causing my resistance to warming up? How can I make warming up more fun? How can I make this as easy as possible for myself? Can I have something in my space that reminds me of why I would want to warm up? Could I multitask this while doing something else I have to do a few times a week or every day, like showering, cleaning, cooking, laundry, brushing my teeth, or something else that I would like to build in as a habit in my life as well? Yoga, stretching your body, or something fun like drawing or painting your nails or doing makeup. And a final idea, would warming up using a microphone help this to feel more fun and encourage you to use your voice gently, ease into the intensity, and help you make observations about your sound? I hope some of that has been helpful or prompted some useful thinking. In the Living Voice Library, there is a lesson that goes into much more detail about all of this under Why Warm Up, so check that out for more details. Happy singing!